But none of that would matter if it wasn't for agency, the ability to do something that sustains and brings life. It's evident with more and more people getting involved. I know that we've gathered clothing and we're hoping to do a blanket and a coat drive. And that is agency that's doing. It's a leading cause of life. And through our connections, we were able to get those products there. And because we have that same coherence, that same meaning and purpose with the other agencies that are doing that. Blessings are being shared with those who live there. But if you have ever been on a mission trip of any kind, if you've ever been anywhere where you thought you were going to be the blessing to the people to whom you were going, you quickly find out that you are blessed even more. And so blessings are shared both by those who go to help those in that tent city, as well as the blessing received by those people who live in that condition and who are so thankful for the blessings that they are receiving. We are blessed as we bless. And so this tent city is no longer a place of despair, but a place that symbolizes the hope of what can be. Not ignoring the circumstances, but transcending with the language of life and possibilities. Life can be found in the most surprising places if we know where to look. It's so important for us to develop this language and the skills to see where life generates, what the leading causes of life are around us. I recently made a connection with this and the importance that it has in a lecture that I gave just last Saturday before I left for my conference. I gave a lecture on suicide awareness and prevention. And I've been giving that lecture probably for, well, not that exact lecture, but lectures on that for at least 15 years, maybe 20. I've been in the military for 34, so probably 15 that I've been actually doing that lecture. And I had not, until I read this book and was developing this sermon, as I was giving the lecture this last time, one of the things we talk about is risk factors. The things that will snatch away life, if you will. The things that pile up in somebody's life and that put people at risk. That's why we call them risk factors. But the other piece of that, and the thing that I tended to focus on less, although we talked about it, but in my own mind I didn't focus on it as much, were the protective factors. The things that are built into our lives that protect us from the risk. And what I realized this time as I was lecturing and looking at these protective factors, I began to notice which ones spoke about connection. When you have protective factors of resources, of family, a church family, a social group, an organization that you feel ownership in and plugged into, when you're close to people at work, that's connection. That's connection. And I began to look at hope, and I began to look at coherence, shared meaning with other people, and I began to look at agency, the feeling that you have the ability to overcome things, to make happen, to do, that you have choices to make. These are the protective factors. So I began to realize that if we were able to build up protective factors in people, because risk is going to come. There are going to be things on the outside that are going to impinge on our lives, that are going to devastate us and put us at risk. But if we can build up that language of life, those protective factors, then no matter how high you pile that risk pile, the protective factors can outweigh that. It can cause us the picture. Can you tell the picture on the slide when I give this lecture as a scale? I hope you see that. I'm standing here like this. Okay, that's right. Anyhow, that it outweighs the risk factors. It's so important to understand these things. Now, you're not going to prevent every suicide. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But as we begin to look at the importance of these life-giving causes, we can realize that it's so important in many of the areas. That's just one connection. We talk about resiliency in the military as well. People who are coming back from deployments, some bounce back right away and reconnect quickly, and others don't. Others struggle. Others suffer with post-traumatic stress disorder. Others never find their way back into the connections, into the coherence, the shared purpose and meaning. Some come back never having the ability to make things happen in their lives again, no agency. They have no hope, and they don't feel that they're being blessed. And so the language of life then begins to identify where these things occur and how we can bring these people who feel so disconnected in the connections. Instead of fighting against the death, we begin to surface the possibilities of the life. Finally, this is so important for us because this is what God calls us. I'm looking at a sentence that represents another conversation here. This is to what? How do you say that? Anyway, this is where we're being called. We're called to choose life. I wish you guys wouldn't talk to me before sermons. We're called to choose life. We had this other big conversation about not liking to end sentences and prepositions, so I just started to do that and I couldn't figure out how to get out of it. Anyway, and so it's so vital, so important that we choose life. And in order to choose life, we need to know what to look for, what the leading causes are, and how to get there from here. I hope you'll join me for the remaining sermons in the series. I'll try not to end any sentences and prepositions. I promise.